fire is devastating and destructive, that it can destroy homes and offices within minutes. Carelessness or negligence is one of the biggest cause of all fires. But if we will follow easy and simple safety rules, safety guidelines, we can prevent fires. The only need is to create awareness among people regarding fire safety. It is up to you. You are going to learn or preparing for burn. I'm Javed, and you are on the platform of Safety First. We are talking about fire safety. Today, I'll discuss fire risk reduction strategies, how to reduce, how to remove hazards, and how to reduce the risk of fire at home, in a factory, in a warehouse, or in a construction workplace. If you are new on this channel, kindly subscribe it. And if you find the video informative, then like, comment, and share with your friends and colleagues. As you know, risk reduction involves removal or reduction of fire hazards and risk to people. Let us start with the reduction of risk caused by potential sources of ignition. How we can control sources of ignition, because heat is the primary element to make a fire. How to control sources of ignition? By enforcing the smoking policy, by replacing neck flames and radiant heaters with convector heaters or a central heating system, by ensuring electrical, mechanical, and gas equipment is installed, used, maintained, and protected in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions and guidelines, by strictly controlling hot work, and by operating permit to work system, by ensuring that no one uses any source of ignition while searching for an escape of gas, and by taking precautions to avoid arson. These are the few examples how we can prevent, how we can reduce ignition sources. Fire is a triangle: heat, oxygen, and fuel. Let us discuss now how to control potential sources of fuel by reducing stocks of flammable materials, liquids, and gases to a minimum, by keeping stocks of flammable materials, liquids, and gases in dedicated storerooms or storage areas, by using non-combustible building materials for building modifications, by removing or treating large areas of highly combustible wall and ceiling linings, such as polystyrene or carpet tiles, to reduce the rate of flame spread across the surface, and by developing a formal system for control of combustible waste. Third primary element of fire is oxygen. Let us discuss here how to reduce potential sources of oxygen that can cause fire, by closing all doors, windows, and other openings not required for ventilation, by shutting down ventilation systems which are not essential to the function of the premises, not storing oxidizing materials near or within heat source or flammable materials, by controlling the use and storage of oxygen cylinders, ensuring that they are not leaking and that where they are located is adequately ventilated. Dear friends and fellows, we are discussing fire risk reduction strategies. As we discussed, fire is destructive. Fire kills. It causes harm to people. Let us discuss here how to reduce risk to persons, to people from fire, by ensuring the adequate fire precautions, how we can protect people from harm, how we can implement fire safety precautions in a workplace. It is only possible by warning people in the event of a fire to allow them to safely escape. And you have to ensure the means of detecting fires. Do you know the principles of fire prevention? Dear friends and fellows, I'm going to tell you the principles of fire prevention. You have to remember these points because by the application of these strategies, you can control the risk of fire. How? By avoiding risks, by evaluating the risks which cannot be avoided, by combating the risks at source, by adapting to technical progress, by replacing the dangerous by the non dangerous or less dangerous, and by developing a coherent overall prevention policy which covers technology, organization of work, and the influence of factors relating to the working environment. By giving collective protective measures priority over individual protective measures, by giving appropriate instructions to workers. We can also summarize these points, these principles as by eliminating the fire hazards. How? Removal of fuel, ignition sources, and oxygen. Number two, by using physical or engineering controls, such as by reducing the risk at source, by providing general protection, generally rather than individually. Point number three, control of the person by job design, management, safe systems of work, training and instruction, supervision, and personal protective equipment. You have to incorporate all these points once you are going to prepare fire risk assessment. The last point is recording and review. Records of fire safety risk assessments should include information on the significant findings, such as organizations employing five or more people, licensed premises, premises where an alterations notice requiring a record to be made of those arrangements is enforced. Records should include the fire hazards that have been identified, persons who may be at risk, and particularly those specially at risk, the actions taken to reduce the risk to people from the spread of fire and smoke, protective measures, the action taken or which will be taken to remove or reduce the chance of a fire occurring, preventive measures, the actions people need to take in case of fire, including details of any persons nominated to carry out a particular function as specified in the fire emergency plan, and the required information, instruction, and training that has been identified and how it will be given. These all points should be the part of risk reduction strategy that is related to fire safety. Dear friends and fellows, type of information that should be included in the records of the findings of fire risk assessment: name of the person carrying out the assessment, date it was carried out, and the date set for its review, details of the person responsible for fire safety of the premises, information on significant fire hazards, persons who may be at risk, and those who might be specially so because of special needs or disabilities, measures to reduce the likelihood of fire occurring, such as removing or reducing sources of ignition and sources of fuel, measures taken to reduce the risks to persons, such as the provision of detection and warning systems and emergency escape routes, information on the actions that people need to take in the event of a fire, requirements for the provision of information, instruction, and training, a lapse of time. All risk assessments should be reviewed periodically depending on the business and how likely things are to change. You are on the platform of safety first. Today we are discussing about fire risk reduction strategies. Let us discuss the circumstances that would require a fire risk assessment to be reviewed, alterations to the building involving extensions or a change in internal layout, changes to work processes such as the introduction of new substances, introduction of new machinery or furniture, changes in the number or type of employees such as disabled persons or persons with special needs, changes in the quantity of stock held or in the storage of hazardous substances after a fire, explosion, or a near miss, after the failure of fire precautions such as detection or alarm systems, as a result of inspections or monitoring which identify fire hazards, after changes in the legislation or guidance, following the enforcement action, and after a period of time. You have to review and you have to update the fire risk assessment. Let us discuss now the sources of information which might help the risk assessment process, country specific legislation and guidance. For example, in the UK, the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005 provides the detailed requirements in respect of general duties for fire safety. The Building Regulations 2000 impose a number of requirements on people carrying out certain building operations. A range of approved documents has been produced which provide practical guidance with respect to the requirements of the regulations for a range of common issues relating to new and altered buildings. Approved document B, fire safety, means of warning and escape, internal and external fire spread, access and facilities for fire service. Approved document M, access to and use of buildings, which is also significant in relation to fire safety. The Health and Safety Executive produced guidance on fire safety, including the storage of flammable liquids in tanks, HSG 176, the storage of flammable liquids in containers, HSG 51, and safe working with flammable substances, INDG 227. These are the different documents, these are the different guidelines. But remember, it is different country to country. You have to follow and comply with the safety regulations. Those are prevailing and implemented or drafted by your legislation in your country. In addition to the safety standards, those are internationally recognized and promulgated, applicable, accepted, and complied. Remember, the organization's fire emergency plan, derived from the fire risk assessment, provides a training and guidance document and gives people on the premises information on the actions to take in the event of a fire and the adopted evacuation strategy. Previous risk assessment will contain valid information which might still be relevant to the organization. General monitoring records from inspections, tours, safety sampling, or audits, even if for general health and safety purposes, may include issues relevant to fire safety, records of electrical inspections and tests, and information on portable appliance testing, failure records, maintenance records, and electrical checks on fixed installations can all give an indication of potential electrical fire risks. The fire logbook or country specific equivalent will contain records of tests, inspections, and drills and provide a valuable record and information of the effectiveness of the preventative and protective measures. including visits by fire enforcement officers and their comments, fire instructions and drills, escape lighting system, primary lighting on escape routes, hose reels, fire extinguishers, fire alarm systems, fire doors, and structural means of escape, electrical installations. Previous incidents provide a summary of significant events and can be used to help in investigations and with the identification of any trends or patterns of events. The visitor register provides information on the types of people likely to be on the premises if a fire does occur. Training records of fire safety training for persons on the premises are important. Maintenance records on fire alarms, fire extinguishers, lighting, signs, fire exits, and fire doors will confirm that they have been maintained in effective working order. The health and safety file, our country specific equivalent, should include all relevant information on fire safety and control measures and is a valuable source of information on existing fire precautions. Operator and machine manuals provide information on safeguarding equipment to reduce the likelihood of fire. Dear friends and fellows, we are talking about fire risk reduction strategies, how we can remove the hazards, and how we can control the fire risks. Do you know the best sources of information that can help you to prepare a specific, relevant, reliable, and sufficient risk assessment? How? By complying with the country's legislation, guidance notes, international standards, industry standards, and other codes of practices, fire safety reference documents such as fire logbooks and maintenance records, trade unions, employee association materials, manufacturers and suppliers data, finding of previous risk assessments, results of previous inspections, advice and documentation from insurance companies, plans and drawings, fire and safety periodicals, major injury reports, information from fire and enforcement authorities, fire safety signage for escape routes and final exits, fire action notices to inform people of the action to be taken in the event of a fire, emergency lighting, design, location, operation, monthly inspection and annual testing, fire safety inspections, evacuation arrangements, including duties of fire wardens, education and training of staff in fire safety arrangements, evacuation procedures, and drills. These all are the sources of information you have to go through while you are going to prepare fire safety risk assessment. Dear friends and fellows, you are watching Safety First. Let us discuss now the relationship between fire risk assessment and the fire safety policy. As you know, that risk assessment is the process by which the specific, necessary, preventive, and protective measures are identified. So, having carried out the fire risk assessment, all the information should be available regarding the protective and preventive measures that are required and the procedures that are necessary to ensure that they are implemented. These will then form part of the fire safety policy. The arrangement section of the fire safety policy would make reference to provisions appropriate to the specific workplace, control of sources of ignition, smoking policy, maintenance of portable electrical equipment, hotworks, control of sources of fuel, minimizing quantities and safe storage of flammable materials, liquids and gases, control of combustible waste, and by fire detection and alarm systems, their installation, maintenance, inspection, and weekly testing. Dear friends and fellows, this is part 3 of fire safety risk assessment. Fire is the potential killer. You have to avoid the fire. You have to prevent the fire. But in case if there is a fire and you are trained to fight it, you can fight it and you can extinguish the fire. You have already learned in detail how to prevent fire, how to protect people from fire, what type of exit routes should be, how the people they should leave the premises, what kind of warning system and fire detection system is required. You can take the guidance from your fire safety department in your state or in your country, and you can also comply with the fire regulations, fire COPs, and fire standards. Those are applicable in your own country, in your own workplace. But remember, in all cases, you have to learn. If you are learning, if you are educating your workforce, and if they are prepared to fight with the fire, they can control the fire. But if you are not preparing, if you are not learning, then sure, ready for burning. And that's all for today. Training session related to fire risk reduction strategies is over. If you have any question, please ask in the comment section. And don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. Hope to see you soon with a new HSC tutorial. Till then, take care, good luck, and Allah Hafiz.